I never thought I'd be that guy who gets blindsided by his own wife, but here I am, telling my story because maybe someone out there needs to hear it. My name's Mike, and I was married to Lisa for about 5 years. We seemed solid at first, happy enough, or so I thought. She was the kind of woman who always had a sharp tongue, quick to throw a witty insult or dismiss your feelings if they didn't suit her. She's beautiful, sure, but her attitude, bitchy as hell. She loved to lie, too. She'd spin these stories like she was in her own little world, and I never really paid much attention to the signs. I was just happy to have someone, and honestly, I was pretty blind to what was really going on. Looking back, there were little things. Her phone always kept close. She'd get weirdly defensive when I tried to look at it, and her excuses for late nights or secretive messages were always pretty flimsy. We fight more often, but she'd brush it off, say I was overreacting, or accuse me of being paranoid. She'd call me insecure and tell me I didn't trust her. I didn't want to believe it, so I brushed those signs aside and tried to focus on the good stuff. But then everything changed. The real drama started a few months ago. I was diagnosed with cancer, lymphoma, pretty aggressive. It hit me hard, and suddenly I was in and out of the hospital, fighting for my life. Lisa was there for the first couple of weeks, and I was grateful, honestly. But then I started noticing things. Text messages on her phone that she'd quickly hide when I entered the room. Her being busy at weird hours, claiming it was work or some girl's night out. And her phone bills started getting suspiciously high, always with odd numbers and late-night calls. I'd catch her slipping her phone into her pocket when I came near, quick to dismiss my questions with a smile and a snarky comment. One night, I was feeling particularly weak from chemo, lying in the hospital bed when I saw her texting someone. The message was something like, "Can't wait to see you tonight. Miss you." I froze. My stomach dropped. I looked at her and she just rolled her eyes, told me I was imagining things, that she's just talking to her sister or a coworker, but I knew better. The way she was acting, her nervous glances, her hurried typing, this was more than just innocent chatting. I wasn't stupid. I knew she was seeing someone behind my back, and it tore me apart. That's when I started digging. I got into her phone when she wasn't around, found more messages, flirty, suggestive, outright disrespectful. She was talking about sex, about how much she missed someone. I saw the name Mark, her so-called best friend, a guy I knew she'd been close to for years, but I never thought it'd come to this. They had a secret code, a whole set of messages packed with innuendos, emojis, and plans to meet up. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I was already fragile from fighting cancer, and now I had this betrayal layered on top. It was like my world was crumbling. I stayed up all night, staring at those messages, trying to process what I'd found. My mind was racing, my heart pounding. How could she do this to me? How could she pretend to care when she was sneaking around, lying to my face? I was in a hospital bed fighting for my life, and she was out there cheating on me. I realized I couldn't let this slide. Not anymore. I had to confront her, even if it meant risking everything I had left. I knew I couldn't keep pretending, not with everything on the line. And that's where I'm at now, sitting here writing this, trying to figure out what to do next. It's a mess. A huge, painful mess. But I know one thing, this betrayal changed everything. I don't think I can ever trust her again, and honestly, I don't want to. The question is, what do I do with this? How do I pick up the pieces when your whole foundation turns out to be a lie? I've got a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, and honestly, a whole lot of confusion. I'll tell you what I decided in the next part, but for now, I just needed to get this out. So now I knew the truth, and I couldn't unsee it. I had the evidence, the messages, the late-night calls, and that sick feeling in my stomach just kept growing. But I wasn't going to confront her in my hospital bed just yet. I needed to plan, to figure out how I was going to handle this bombshell. I wasn't about to lose my mind over a cheating wife, especially not when I was already fighting for my life. But I also knew I couldn't keep this bottled up. I had to face her head-on, and I had to do it smart. The first thing I did was wait for her to come home from work. She always claimed she was busy, meeting clients, running errands, whatever her excuse was, and I played it cool. I pretended everything was normal, but inside I was simmering. I watched her every move, noting her nervous glances, her fidgeting when I asked about her day. I was trying to decide how to approach her, whether to confront her outright or to catch her in the act. But honestly, I just wanted her to slip up again so I could see her true reaction. A couple of days went by, and she kept acting strange. She was more defensive than usual, snapping at me if I asked about her phone or her whereabouts. She'd lie about where she was, who she was with. Then came the night I decided enough was enough. I waited until she was in the shower, then I sneaked into her phone the way I should have done from the start. I didn't want her to know I was onto her, at least, not until I was ready. I scrolled through her messages again, making sure I saw everything, and what I found was even worse than I expected. Mark wasn't just some casual fling. They'd had sex multiple times during my chemo treatments. The messages were explicit, full of promises, and I could tell from her tone she was enjoying herself, completely ignoring my suffering. I felt a surge of rage and heartbreak all at once. This wasn't just cheating on me. This was an outright slap to my face in the middle of my fight to survive. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed awake, obsessing over what to do. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to make her pay. But how? I wasn't a violent guy, but I was damn sure I wasn't going to let her walk all over me either. I started putting my plan together step by step. I wanted her to see that I wasn't the kind of guy who just accepts betrayal and walks away. I was going to hit her where it hurts, her ego, her lies, her sense of control. The next morning, I decided I'd confront her. I waited until she got home from work, acting like everything was normal. We sat down at the kitchen table and I looked her straight in the eyes. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her, but I didn't care. I told her I knew about her affair with Mark. Her reaction was priceless. She rolled her eyes, scoffed at me, and tried to brush it off, saying I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was sick from the chemo and losing my mind. But I had the evidence and I made her see it. I showed her the messages, sat back, and waited for her to crack. Her face turned white for a second, then she started denying everything. She called me crazy, said I was jealous, insecure, and that I was making it all up because I was scared of losing her. She spat venom in her words, saying I was overreacting, that she loved me but she just needed some fun because I was too sick to satisfy her. That was a punch to the gut, her blaming me, twisting it all around so she was the victim while I was here, broken down from cancer, trying to hold everything together. I couldn't believe how she was lying so effortlessly. It was like she knew exactly how to twist the knife. I felt sick, angry, betrayed, like everything I believed in was a lie. I wanted to scream at her, call her every dirty name I knew, but I just sat there staring at her, feeling nothing but cold fury. I knew then that this wasn't going to be fixable. Not after this. She was a bitch, selfish, manipulative, and completely indifferent to the pain she'd caused me. I realized I had to decide whether I was going to forgive her or cut her out of my life for good. While I was still trying to process all this, she started crying, fake tears, of course. Said she was sorry, that she loved me, that she'd stopped seeing Mark, but I didn't believe her anymore. Honestly, I couldn't feel anything except this deep, burning disappointment. I had fought so hard to stay positive, to stay strong during my chemo, and now I just felt empty. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was just a liar and a cheat. That moment marked a turning point. Either I let her destroy what was left of my trust, or I took control and did something about it. I knew I wasn't going to stay silent, but I also knew I needed a plan to make her regret ever crossing me. That's where I stand now. The betrayal has shattered me, but I'm not going to be a victim anymore. I'll tell you what I decided next, but for now, that's where I am. Just trying to breathe, trying to figure out whether I stay or go, and trying not to let that pain swallow me whole. After the confrontation, everything felt different, like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. I had her confession, her tears, her excuses, but deep down, I knew this wasn't about her crying or her begging for forgiveness. It was about what I was going to do next. I had already made up my mind that I wasn't going to let her ruin me, even if it meant burning everything down first. I decided I needed to plan my revenge carefully, not just for her sake, but for my own peace of mind. The first step was to cut her off completely. I knew she'd try to spin it, to manipulate her way out of it, but I wasn't going to let her. I told her I needed some space, that I wasn't feeling well and needed time to think. She looked annoyed but didn't argue much. I knew she thought I'd come crawling back, that I'd forgive her like I always did before. But this time I was done with that, done playing the fool. I needed to make her understand that she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back from. I spent the next few days gathering more evidence. I kept a close eye on her, checking her phone, her emails, her social media. I wanted to know exactly how far she'd gone, and I wasn't leaving any stone unturned. I found even more proof, photos, more explicit messages, plans to meet up. It was clear she'd been sneaking around for months, even during my chemotherapy treatments. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deeply she'd betrayed me. It was like she'd been preparing for this moment, secretly undermining my trust while I was fighting for my life. Meanwhile, I started thinking about how to hurt her back. Not physically, no, I'm not that kind of guy, but emotionally. I'm not about to stoop to her level, but I wanted her to feel the sting of her own betrayal. The idea was to make her realize what she'd lost, to strip her of her sense of control. I needed her to see that I wasn't just some pushover she could manipulate. I was done being the victim in all this. I was going to be the one calling the shots. I reached out to a private investigator, someone who specialized in relationship betrayals. It wasn't cheap, but I needed absolute proof of everything she'd been up to. I wanted her to know that I wasn't messing around, that I had eyes everywhere, and that I'd make her regret ever crossing me. The pie started tailing her, gathering footage, recording her late-night meetings, even catching her sneaking into a hotel room once. Seeing her in those videos, sneaking around with Mark, made my blood boil. She looked so confident, so in control, like she could get away with anything. That's when I realized I needed to give her a taste of her own medicine. One night I left her a message, just a simple text saying, "I know everything now. You can't hide from me anymore." That was enough to make her panic, I could tell. The next morning I confronted her again. I laid out everything I knew, her lies, her cheating, her plans with Mark. I told her I was done, that she'd lost all my trust, and I had no intention of sticking around to be her emotional punching bag anymore. I told her I was going to destroy her, not physically, but in her reputation, make her see that her lies wouldn't go unchecked. She got furious, started yelling, calling me crazy, saying I was stalking her, that I was ruining her life. Her bitchy attitude returned full force, insisting she loved me, that it was all just a misunderstanding, that I was jealous and insecure. But I didn't care about her excuses anymore. I'd spent years forgiving her, making excuses for her lies, but not this time. This time I wanted her to feel the pain she dished out to me. I wanted her to realize she couldn't manipulate her way out of this, that I was done being her doormat. The emotional toll was enormous. I felt like I was walking through a fog, angry, betrayed, heartbroken, but also determined. I didn't want to be that guy who gets played and just accepts it. No, I was going to make sure she paid for what she did, in her own cruel way. The thought of her with Mark, laughing, sneaking around, having sex, while I was battling cancer, made me sick. But I also knew I had to stay strong and keep my dignity. I was no longer fighting just for my body, but for my pride. I started planning my final move. I wasn't going to leave her with just a broken heart. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, public, humiliating, and permanent. But I wasn't rushing it. I had to be smart. I needed her to see that I wasn't some pushover who'd take her betrayal lying down. I was going to make her regret ever crossing me, not just with words, but with actions that cut deep. It's a cold, brutal game, but I was done being the fool. I was ready to strike back, and trust me, she'd wish she never did this to me. If you want me to keep going, just say so. The plan was formulating in my head day by day. I knew I couldn't just blow everything up all at once. I had to be strategic. I wanted her to realize what she'd lost without me having to go full nuclear immediately. So I started with small digs, things she wouldn't see coming but would hit her where it hurt most. It was about control, about making her feel vulnerable, just like she'd made me feel during the worst weeks of my cancer treatment. I reached out to some of her friends, the ones she trusted, a few who knew she'd been acting strange but didn't suspect the full extent. I fed them some false information, enough to make her paranoid. I told them I was planning to leave, that I knew everything, and I wanted her to feel the pressure mounting. I also made sure they knew I wasn't threatening her directly, but that I was aware of her lies and her betrayal. I wanted her to see her social circle start to crumble, to feel the isolation creeping in. That alone was enough to make her nervous. I could see it in her eyes when she'd talk to her friends or even when she'd glance at her phone, nervously checking for messages or calls from Mark. Meanwhile, I kept digging. I hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her movements, just to be sure I had every detail. The footage I got was brutal, caught her sneaking out of the hotel with Mark, kissing him passionately, even in front of the cameras. Seeing her so carefree, so confident while I was fighting for my life, it made my blood boil. I wanted to hurt her, not physically, but emotionally deeply. I wanted her to feel the cold sting of betrayal she'd thrown at me, magnified 100 times. One day, I staged a sort of accident. I left my phone in her purse when she wasn't looking. Just a simple act, but what I planted in there was a message from her to Mark. It was a confession, a declaration that she was tired of pretending, that she loved him, that she wanted to be with him for good. I didn't plan to show her right away. I wanted her to find it herself, to realize she'd been caught red-handed. The look on her face when she finally saw that message, reading her own words, was priceless. She froze, her mind reeling, trying to deny it, but the proof was right there. The fallout was immediate. She screamed, she threw things, she called me every insult she could think of. But I just sat there cold, watching her unravel. I told her she'd lost everything, her marriage, my trust, her dignity. That she'd betrayed the man who was trying to get through cancer, who only wanted her by his side, not in bed with some other guy. Her bitchy facade cracked that day, and I saw her real self, the manipulative, selfish woman who thought she could get away with anything. I didn't want to just humiliate her publicly. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices. I started spreading the word among her friends and family carefully, so it wouldn't blow up in my face immediately. I wanted everyone to know what she was capable of: cheating, lying, sneaking around while I was fighting for my life. It was about dignity, about making her accountable. She accused me of stalking, of ruining her reputation, but I knew the truth. I was only exposing her lies, giving her a taste of her own medicine. All the while, I was battling my health, fighting to keep my head clear. It wasn't easy. These emotions, this betrayal, it was eating me alive some days. But I couldn't let her see that. I had to stay composed, in control. What I was doing was cold, maybe even cruel, but I didn't care anymore. She played her hand, and she'd push me to the edge. I was tired of being the victim. I wanted her to realize she'd lost the one thing she claimed to love: me. And I was going to make damn sure she never forgets it. The final stage of my revenge was coming. I'd planned something that would leave her reeling, something she'd never see coming. But I wasn't rushing it. I had to be patient, wait for the right moment to hit her where it would really hurt. For now, I just wanted her to see that I wasn't going to take her crap anymore, that I was capable of fighting back. No more lies, no more excuses. This was my game now, and I was playing for keeps. Just one more part of this story to tell, and then I'll wrap it all up. If you want me to continue, just say so. The waiting game was the hardest part. I kept everything close to the chest, letting her believe she was still in control, still getting away with it. But I was gathering my strength, my evidence, and my resolve. I knew she'd try to spin everything, deny, lie, manipulate her way out of it like she always did. But this time I was ready. I had her cornered, and I was going to make her face the reality of what she'd done. No excuses, no bullshit. I started creating a dossier: screenshots, recordings, notes from the pie, everything I'd collected during the last few weeks. I wanted her to see in black and white just how far she'd gone. I also arranged for a lawyer I knew to prepare some documents, things I could use if I decided to take legal action or if I wanted to threaten her with exposure. My goal was to make her realize I was serious, that I had the power to destroy her reputation just as she tried to destroy mine. Her behavior grew more frantic as the days went on. She started accusing me of spying, of stalking her, and she even threatened to call the police, claiming I was harassing her. But I didn't care about her threats anymore. I kept my distance, let her stew in her own paranoia. If she thought I was dangerous, good. That's exactly what I wanted. It was about making her feel unsafe, insecure, just like she'd made me feel during my illness. I needed her to understand that her lies had consequences, that she couldn't keep up this charade forever. One night, I set the trap. I staged a situation where she'd see her own reflection in a mirror, or rather, I let her think she was being watched. I installed a hidden camera in the living room, nothing obvious, just a small device to record her reactions when she thought nobody was looking. That night she was acting extra bitchy, throwing a tantrum because I'd said I was leaving her for good. She yelled, called me pathetic, said I was sick and weak, and that she'd do whatever she wanted. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, and I saw her typing something. I already knew what she was doing, but watching her in her full-blown bitch mode made me feel a strange mix of anger and satisfaction. The next morning I played back the footage for her. Her eyes widened, her face turned red with rage and embarrassment. She tried to deny everything, said I was a liar, that I'd fabricated the evidence. But I just shrugged, showed her the recordings, and told her it was over, that her lies had been exposed, her secrets revealed. I told her I was done being her doormat, that I was going to tell everyone what she really was, a liar, a cheat, a manipulator. That was when she finally broke down. Not because she felt remorse, but because she realized she'd lost her power. That's what I wanted, to strip her of her control, make her see she couldn't bullshit her way out of this. From that moment on, she tried to spin it differently. She claimed she did nothing wrong, that I was jealous, that I was sick and imagining things. But I knew better. I knew the truth, and I wasn't going to let her rewrite history. Her bitchy attitude turned into desperation, her lies more frantic. She begged me to forgive her, to forget everything. But I was done forgiving her for this. I felt nothing but cold fury. I knew I wasn't going to stay married to someone who'd betray me like that, especially not when I was fighting for my life, feeling more vulnerable than ever. The final decision came one evening when I sat her down, told her I was leaving for good, that I was going to file for divorce, and she'd never see me again. I told her she'd lost everything, and that I'd make sure everyone knew what kind of person she really was. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to understand that her actions had consequences far beyond what she thought. I left her crying, screaming, blaming everyone but herself. That moment felt like victory, cold, bitter, but justified. I had taken my power back, and I was finally free from the betrayal that had almost broken me. Looking back, I realize how much I learned. From all this, trust is fragile and love can be a double-edged sword. She proved that she was capable of lying, cheating, and manipulating when it suited her. I was naive to think I could change her, but now I see things clearly. If I could give anyone advice, it's this: never ignore the signs, protect yourself, and don't be afraid to fight back when someone crosses the line. Love is supposed to lift you up, not tear you down. In the end, I'm just glad I saw the truth before it destroyed me completely. And I know I'll be better off without her, free from her lies, her bitchy attitude, her betrayal. That's what real strength is, knowing when to walk away and never look back. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything that happened, I realize how much this whole ordeal has changed me. I used to think love was about trust, about loyalty, about believing in someone even when the signs were there. But I've learned that sometimes love means walking away, especially when your partner shows you who they really are. Lisa was never the woman I thought she was. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her cheating, she proved that. She was capable of anything when her ego was on the line. And honestly, I was blind for so long, convinced that love could fix everything. But love doesn't fix betrayal, and it certainly doesn't erase the pain of deception. Getting through this has been a brutal journey. I fought cancer, which was already a nightmare, and then I had to deal with the crushing betrayal of the woman I trusted. The worst part wasn't even the sex, though that hurt enough. It was the fact that she lied for so long, taken my vulnerability and used it against me. She thought she could keep her secret, keep me in the dark, and then walk away clean. But I saw through her game and I made her face it. I made her understand that betrayal doesn't just hurt, it destroys. I guess what I'm saying is, I've learned the importance of self-respect. If someone shows you who they are, really shows you, they're not worth the pain of holding on to. I might be scarred, physically and emotionally, but I'm stronger now because I faced my truth head on. I've accepted that not everyone deserves your love, and that sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. It's easy to stay to hope for change, but in the end, your peace and dignity matter more. I won't lie, I still feel the sting sometimes. I still think about what she did, about Mark, about the lies. But I also know I'm better off without them in my life. I've started focusing on myself, on healing, on rediscovering what makes me happy beyond the pain. I've cut all ties, moved out, and now I'm rebuilding. It's slow and some days are harder than others, but I feel a weight lifting off my shoulders. I've finally taken control again. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs and don't make excuses for someone's bad behavior. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. And if it's betrayal, don't hesitate to take your power back. Love isn't supposed to hurt that badly, and you deserve someone who's loyal, honest, and respectful. I don't regret what I've been through because it's made me realize my worth. I've come out of this scars and all stronger and more aware. And that's all that matters now.